mean something like me.
All right, let's rock and roll. Welcome to another rainy episode of Walking with Walfinch. Today I'm super excited to announce that we've got Bez joining us, and he's the co-founder of Drop Gym and a ex-professional bodybuilder?
British champion in bodybuilding.
Wow, okay, great. So thank you for joining.
No problem.
So Bez, tell us a little bit about yourself. What's the history? Tell us about the bodybuilding and all that.
I started training really young and then got into bodybuilding and became a very elite level bodybuilder. But in the time that I was doing that, I basically always focused on training clients and catering to people more than actual bodybuilding itself.
Wow.
And then, through the skills I gathered, I decided to start a gym with my business partner, and we've done pretty well. We've only existed for about 3.5 years, and we're on our 4th site now. And yeah, it's like a lifestyle space. It's a friendly environment. We don't allow more than a certain amount of bookings, and it's quite residential. So
it's epic.
Yeah, it's going really well. I mean,
this is how we met, right?
Yeah, I remember. So
I walked in, I took one look at you, and I thought, I'll train here.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, what, 3 months I'm going to look like that, am I? So Bez, your history is so interesting. I know that you're really well respected in the bodybuilding space in the UK.
Yep.
So I'm going to ask some questions because the 15-year-old in me literally wanted this in life, right? So how big did you get?
So I'd say at my maximum, I'd probably be like 130 kilos in the off season. And then if I was on stage, I'd be like 106, 107 kilos.
And what sort of body fat percentage are you talking?
It's hard to measure, but I would say anything like 4% maybe, something like that. I think under 4% becomes slightly
it's like passing
health issue. Yeah. It's not so easy to get below that.
Wow.
That point.
I mean, that is amazing. It's and I've seen the photos, and actually I don't know if you'll remember, but I was training once, and I was saying to a friend of mine, lie down, do some chest press. It was you and a friend of yours in the gym. It was only the three of us there.
Yep.
Sit back up, and you're both topless, posing. I was like, "What the hell just happened here?" It was really like watching some Greek gods in the gym. I was like,
a quiet time in the gym.
Yeah, exactly. That's the marketing done. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me, what got you into bodybuilding in the first instance?
So I actually just had a period of studying and not doing any physical activity, and my dad he made me do some press-ups. Yeah. I think I did like 5 and I did 0 pull-ups. And obviously at that age he would have been in the army.
Yeah.
And done 150 of both. So it's like, this is pathetic. You need to get to the gym.
Yeah, nice.
And I started trying some of that stuff, and I think at one point, maybe a year and a half later, they were like, okay, it's enough now.
Yeah.
You've become physically fit, but I was already so hooked on training, and I met my neighbor in the gym who was about my age, and he had the big book of Arnold.
Oh yes.
And so we went through it and just did everything every day. So
how old were you then?
Like 16, 17.
Yeah.
We just repeated everything we read in the book, which was like 2-3 hours of training a day, which is way too much. Actually, unnecessary amount.
Yeah, imagine.
But we don't care. We're like teenagers.
Yeah. What else are you going to do, right?
Eating tuna, drinking milk, trying to pick like the cheaper options of protein. And then I met a guy called Ian Dow, who is one of the best UK bodybuilders of all time, and his wife, who is the best of all time.
Wow.
In the female side of it. And they basically taught me how to train, how to eat. They're very old school, and that kind of leads a little bit into what we're probably going to discuss, which is, I had 2 people that were in their 60s, 70s, that were super capable, super healthy, no joint problems, telling me how to train, but how to keep training, not necessarily just like blitz it now, but they say, we've been doing this way since the start of our careers in the 50s, 60s, so
that is amazing.
Get on with it.
So what does that look like? I mean, so for me, the thing that really sort of turns me on and gets me out of bed every day is really trying to kind of redefine home care in the UK, and I think that we probably are not talking enough about aging well, and all that kind of, muscle mass in older people and all that kind of stuff, where, we're doing the work and we're doing the kind of personal care and all of that, but what we're not really thinking about is when I'm in my 40s and 50s, how do I age well so that when I'm in my 80s and 90s, I don't have those joint issues 100%. And all of that? So
and it's being discussed more now, right?
Yeah.
It's like much more prominent than it was 10, 15 years ago. But people, I'd say the biggest perk for us is that the training system I follow, or I've almost designed, is it doesn't rely on heavy weight. So actually the market becomes, really big. So we can train people that are 80 years old. We can train people that are pregnant, someone who's 14 or a bit cautious about, having the issues with their growth spur or whatever it might be. So now we actually take on loads of clients who have some sort of, low hormone count, or they have a knee problem, a hip problem, and we're able to cater to this person and over time build, joint strength, improve their muscle density, and that directly correlates with aging slower, having better sleep, having a much higher test count or semen count, and they come in half the time and they already know half of this before I have to explain the perks of weightlifting. But now the customer or the client, they come in and they have some awareness of what they're gaining from training in the gym. Very different. Like I said, 10 years ago, people think you have to look good in a t-shirt or a dress.
That's why you train.
And that's it. There's no more to it than that. But now they understand, blood sugar's better. The list of perks has become really large, and it's good for us, just timing. But I would have thought of this or known this many years ago. Just everyone else was focusing on running in the park, doing classes, cycling, which are still, have their own health metrics.
It was all cardio, no muscle mass stuff, right?
Exactly.
So, and I'm really interested in like everything you're saying here. I think we could be here for like hours, but we'll probably need to get you back on a few of these. But, so I'm really interested in this, and I think if someone's in their 50s, for example, and thinking, well, okay, I'm not in the peak of my life, health-wise. I want to change that. I want to improve that, and I'm looking ahead 20 years. What does that person do? Male, female? I think just getting in the gym and getting each muscle group engaged once a week, is really good for you. I think getting in the gym and engaging each muscle group, doing each main lift twice a week, so that's like 120 minutes, life-changing. Really?
Yeah, the progress or gains you make from that 120 minutes is exponentially larger than the next 120 minutes. So this is another issue. People are sold that you have to go gym every morning, every day. It has to be this really religious routine. But actually, if you can get 2 sessions a week, really good. If you can get 4 sessions a week, amazing. And the perk of that is that I'm telling you that you don't have to make such a large commitment. You don't have to eat 0 carbs or any of these extremes, and it suits your lifestyle, because the 50-year-old you're discussing, he is busy. He's already built a business. He's already has a routine. He already has a family, commitments,
life stuff,
exactly, life things. So I'll tell him to only take 2 hours of that week and hand it to us, and then in that same, with no more than those 2 hours, he gets to change his life, and this is a no-brainer.
Amazing.
Everyone's busy. Everyone has limited time. But if I'm not taking too much time, you run out of excuses, right?
Exactly. So, you're in your 50s, you're going to gym 3 times, let's say, and you're thinking about aging well. Your purpose when you come to drop gym or in Bez's mind is about aging well, but through increasing muscle mass. Right? So what is the value and benefit of increasing muscle mass? And then also, how does someone do that in terms of, okay, I'm in the gym, what are the big lifts that I should be doing? And when you're talking about sort of lifting lower weight, and what is that, more reps and all that, so that whole piece of like, what I'm trying to understand is why increasing muscle mass is so important, and why the thinking has changed, because it has, and how to do that when you're older, maybe your test count is lower and all that kind of thing, and
So when you're older, you lose like high impact. You don't have the explosiveness you have had, but your actual ability to build and retain muscle doesn't change that much. People always say, "Oh, I'm 50 years old, so I don't think I can do this." It's like, you can. You can't run as fast or play football, but you can definitely squat and lunge and do a pull-up if you build up to it. So I think your question about what they should do becomes a little bit more of what they can't do, as in they shouldn't really deadlift.
Okay.
Not because they can't, but because they the risk of injury is so high. So I've told you already, the benefit of weight training is you could stay injury-free for the rest of your life from 50 to 100 if you live to 100. But there's certain movements that cause issues or risk. So we would avoid deadlifts, so we'd maybe avoid like a clean and press. But everything else that's like controlled and not such a big compound, you can include it in your week. Squats are a must. Lunges are a must. You can plank for lower back health. You can shoulder press for shoulder health. These movements have to be a core of your system. And then you've already been our client. You would rotate things so that you don't rely on just heavyweight.
Yeah.
If you learn that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And actually what I found really interesting was, I've trained in various different capacities. I've done the weightlifting stuff and competitively, and I've played around, amateur bodybuilding stuff. And what I've really enjoyed training with you guys is just it takes all the ego out of training, and it's all just, it's not about heavyweight. It's, maybe let's have a sort of a slower rep and so on, and it's just so interesting when you start training like that, and also getting the full range of motion. And a lot of PTs don't really get into that whole space of having that full range of motion. I think, I was with your cousin actually on Monday. I'm like, my chest is still hurting.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So it's very interesting, I think.
And range of motion is big because, weight training should be like loaded stretching. If you did yoga as an old person, that's also very beneficial for you. What we're doing is technically yoga with a barbell or a dumbbell. And then you're making your joint
That's an interesting way to look at it.
Go to its, I always call it loaded stretching. And both are perks. The problem is that obviously loaded stretching can only, if it's just stretching, it can only be so difficult.
Yeah.
We have to have a variable that adds difficulty, and it shouldn't just be weight. Because that's a lazy man's variable.
Yeah.
They go to the gym, they add some weight, and they say, okay, I'm going to push this or lift this. But eventually they stop getting strong or as strong. And they have like a flat line. And this is the window where people will compromise technique or spend extra time on that lift and usually hurt themselves. So we get you away from that. You never spend more than 5 minutes on an exercise. You never take longer than 30, 40-second breaks between sets. You might really like your PT. They'll talk to you, but they'll say, get on with it.
I've tried to tell a couple of funny stories.
I'm sure they'll get paused halfway, and then you have to kind of keep going.
And so what's the in your method, in your technique? How many reps and sets is it on average?
So actually, the end product of doing 5 reps to failure and doing 25 reps to failure is the same.
Okay,
you get the same result. The reason we would change is because your body's become so used to doing 5 reps to failure. Now it needs new stimulus, so it does 25 reps to failure.
Shock training.
When it becomes used to that, it goes back to 5 reps of a slightly heavier weight. Like I said, it's just variation.
Yeah.
Variation is key. Finding ways to exactly shock your body without only relying on one thing is pretty much our ethos.
That's really interesting, Bez. Thank you. And so, I know that you do something really actually, which I think is quite forward thinking. You do a lot of testing on hormone levels, blood testing, and so on at the gym. Can you talk me through that? I've not actually been through that with you. I've done it elsewhere, but I'm really interested to understand what is it that you're looking for.
So I mean, with guys, they always drop their level of testosterone. After a certain point, it drops by a certain percentage every decade. And with women, they go through menopause. Their recovery slightly changes. They get higher cortisol levels. So if we have someone who comes in and we feel like they are in this scenario, we would get them to test and go to a trusted lab. They give us the results, and then we'd say, because of this, we have to take your recovery into consideration. Low testosterone basically would just mean that you don't recover as well. Your protein synthesis is not as large. And same with women. Their equivalent would be estrogen. And if this is, dropping a little bit, we have to take the same thing into account. And it would just be less volume, a little bit less training. Food would have to be catered to slightly differently, whether they're relying on fats or carbs or wherever it might be. Very important though, because our clients are in a certain age range.
You generally
we don't have 20-year-old clients. We have family people. They are anywhere between 35 to maybe 50, 55, and a lot of them would be facing these issues. And pre 5 years ago, no one even cares.
That's so
true. It's not something that's even brought up in a conversation. But now people are super aware that, okay, I am training, I am eating well, I'm not quite getting the results I want. There's another variable here, and that is the variable.
That's so interesting. And so does that impact the pace of aging, the hormone levels?
Yes, of course. So testosterone is like the fountain of youth. If you have high some people genetically will just have really high levels of testosterone, and there's a fix for it. If you go on TRT, there is a way to make this a decent level again, and you can just function as you did before your drop in testosterone.
And does weight training help that as well, or just sort of
muscle density? Muscle is an organ. That's the biggest change in perspective. It's not like an aesthetic feature. It's actually an organ. Like I said, it contributes to deep sleep, contributes to blood glucose or glycogen distribution. It contributes to how high your hormone levels are, how balanced your hormones are. So you get to tick all these boxes by just doing one thing or having one thing. It's not, like I said, aesthetic anymore. It is actually like, a second heart or a second set of lungs.
That's interesting to think about that way.
Like that. From a Walfinch, this is the name of your perspective. The biggest issue, or one of the biggest issues, would be that someone has a hip problem or a hip displacement, and this leads to them slowly having much more complications, or not being able to move, mental health, etc., etc. But obviously, if that person has a strong hip, they have some muscle around this joint, and they've worked their hip through a range of a squat, the chances of that happening become so minimal. So they'd never have to face this issue, And I've told you, I've talked to people from other care homes and tried to discuss having a gym, a facility where people go once a week, they get their main movements in, they do a couple press-ups, they do some lunges, and this will massively avoid so many issues that come from them never moving or never doing anything physically straining.
Yeah, wow. It's a nice big puddle there. So that is so interesting. I think when we're thinking about blood glucose levels and all of that kind of piece, I mean, how does that play a part, and how do people get that under control?
So your muscles will take glycogen away from your core system and into the muscle, and obviously if you have more, distribution becomes more even, and if you have less, then your pancreas has to deal with that rather than it being spread around into the muscle. So people having higher density means that when you eat something, it becomes glycogen. All of a sudden, it's distributed and used very evenly among your body rather than concentrated in one place.
That's very cool. And so
diabetic comes in, or someone who's borderline. They've been told they're pre-diabetic. Most of the time, if they come in and actually build a routine and actually knuckle down and eat well and train well, this doesn't happen. They never end up getting diabetes.
Wow.
They fix the problem.
They just fix it through the training.
Through just improving muscle density. And I use the word density because, very often women will come in and they assume that they're going to train and get big by accident and look bulky. Yeah. But, that's number one, very hard to do. It's almost like saying I'm going to get too rich. I wish I wish I had the recipe on how to accidentally build muscle.
I've been to the
gym. But I use density because you can increase the amount of muscle, and it looks the same. It's just the difference between a football and a bowling ball.
Yes,
they're the same size. One is super dense, one isn't.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, and that is really interesting to think about it that way, because I think actually often you'll see these not particularly big looking guys at the gym, but they can lift a lot of weight.
Exactly.
Exactly. That's your
like an Olympic lifter. It can be a guy who's like 65 kilos. He'll clean and jerk 200 kilos. It's like, how is that even possible?
Yeah.
But he just has a very, very high level of density.
That's super, super cool. And so that kind of big thing that everyone's talking about at the moment of, just weight loss, getting that under control, I think, especially as you age, that is something that tends to sort of fall out of control for people.
Yep.
Does muscle mass start impacting that in a positive way?
So same thing. It requires its own amount of maintenance.
Yeah.
So just having more muscle means you need more calories to live.
Yeah.
Which means you take away the calories from the calories that you're eating and repairing. So if I have, I used the bowling ball earlier. If I have to repair this bowling ball and it becomes bigger and bigger and more difficult to repair, that takes a certain amount of calories to distribute the nutrition and to actually help me recover for my next workout. So someone who is very muscular, and I don't like to use that person as an example because people get a bit like, oh, you know, I don't want to look
I don't want to look like that. Yeah,
but
sure.
let's say we have someone who looks like that. Yeah, let's say you have someone who looks like that. The calories required for them to just exist is actually higher than someone who runs every day, but is super slim.
So let's put some numbers on this. So you and your peak, what
I would have eaten 6,000-7,000 calories a day. You can find a person who runs, you know, marathons every day, and they won't eat that kind of.
So what would that person? Because they're going to be slight.
They might eat 4,000 or 5,000 calories, even if they're running a lot.
Okay.
But there's a big difference.
I'm
spending 45 minutes in the gym working out, and they're spending 5 hours running. I also am injury-free, and they undoubtedly have bad ankles, bad hamstrings. They have problems to solve that I don't need to.
That is so true. That's very interesting. And so someone that is never trained, one of our clients, in their 70s, 80s, you know, probably slight, not sort of very big, but doesn't, you know, has lost a lot of that muscle mass, because I think as you age, you lose a lot of that muscle mass if you don't do anything with it, right? So what do they do? How do they start building muscle mass? So if I've got, you know, my parents, my grandparents that I'm trying to support in this, what sort of things could they be doing at home?
Like I said, there's certain movements they should do just for core strength and general joint health. You know, squats and lunges, I will always say that. They should try and do some form of a push-up. They should hang on a bar, just holding themselves on a bar and improving grip strength. You know, the correlation between how long someone lives or how good the later stages of their life are and their grip strength is super positive. But that means that they're using their hands to do things. You know, it's not just them squeezing what's it called? Where you're just improving your forearm strength.
So what's a good hang time?
If someone can do 20 to 30 seconds, that's really good.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
If a good hang time is the same or more than what they did last week.
Yeah, okay.
You know, I don't try to set people specific goals, because you could have someone who's super capable or someone who's not capable or has had some complications like an injury or a health condition, etc. So if that person with injuries and a health condition hangs for 2 seconds, it's really good. You've ticked the box for this week, you know?
Yeah. And so Bez, you know, I think we could carry on speaking for days and weeks on this. This is just so interesting, this stuff. But we're going to be out of time here soon. But what I think you have done with Drop Gym, I think is so interesting. You know, as a customer and as someone in the care sector, I think it's so interesting to market something towards older people, towards sort of having personal training, but that isn't all ego and, you know, let's put loads of wheels on and lift loads of weight, right? And it's a really interesting thing, because I think you are part of that change. What's your aspiration with Drop Gym and that whole sort of?
So I think from COVID, there was just a huge shift to the residential demand of gyms. And people want something that's close to their house. Like I said, I'm asking them to not make a huge time commitment. The fact we're on a high street that's very close to them, they can pop out, do a 45-minute workout, get home within an hour. Like I said, twice a week. I don't need to do more, 3 times a week. Really good. Happy with that.
Thank you.
And I think if people appreciate us and we have a good environment, people have good gym etiquette, you know, we never have weird throwing of weights or someone chatting up a woman in the gym or anything like that, we can potentially be on many high streets in London. And I don't have the aspiration of what usually happens is someone has a gym or a company and they have 2 or 3 and they say Dubai. We need to be, let's go to, you know, Marbella, because this is the next step. I don't really think like that. I just think if just London itself has a really good crop of people, and if we can be on, you know, 10, 20, 30 high streets in London, then we can face something bigger than this.
Wonderful.
We retain clients, you know, we retain like 80-90% of our customers, have really good reviews, everyone has a good experience. Always I get a referral of a wife or a friend or someone in the area that they met. And we create sort of like a community bubble.
That's great, and I like, I mean, so when my wife was training with you, and she'll be, once she's recovered from the baby, she'll be back in, but one of the things that she really liked was that you had a whole selection of PTs, and I've got friends and their wives that have trained there, and having male, female PTs, you know, people that are in bodybuilding, body sculpturing, you know, the whole kind of wide array of people. I think that's really interesting because it speaks to lots of different people. So.
100%. So I try and have the same amount of women and men, and I try and make sure everyone has some sort of special field. You know, they've rehabbed. 30 people before they even start going through my academy. They've done a sport. They've maybe specialized in fat loss or specialized in powerlifting or whatever it is. So if we do have someone who comes in and says, I want to get in routine, but I have this knee problem, or I have a specific goal to squat 100 kilos in the next 6 to 9 months, I know exactly who I'm referring them
Amazing.
to.
No,
and they have to go through the academy for, at least 2 to 3 months. So they have to have had a CV of being a PT for multiple years. They come, I teach them our blueprint or our way of doing things, and then they start customer facing.
Just so interesting. And so, Bez, I usually end these podcasts with one actionable top tip that you can give to the audience to say this will help you to build your thriving business. But in your situation here, I'm going to say that, give us your main hack on this will help you building a thriving life health-wise.
If I'm going to be really, blunt and concise, I'd say 70% of the time I meet people, they just don't drink enough water.
Okay.
They have an extensive list of supplements. They think about all the best meats and etc. etc. They're just not hydrated.
Nice.
And probably if I got someone on a body scanner and they disappear for a week or two and they just drink an extra 1.5 liters of water a day and they come back, they lose 1% of body fat.
Really?
And they haven't paid for anything yet. They haven't even had a session yet.
Wow.
So if I have like 10 seconds with someone, that's always the point I bring across. I say, this is great what you're asking me, because they ask me about creatine and fish oils and etc. So just drink enough water.
Nice, great.
Then progress to the other details.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. Yep. Good man. And thank you for joining us on another episode of Walking with Walfinch. I'm going to go and try my hang test. You should too. See you soon.